Among those 8 is my next guest, Congressman representing Montana's 2nd Congressional District, Matt Rosendale, joins us now. Congressman, good to have you back with us, sir.
Vince, always good to be on with you.
Sir, take us through why you decided yesterday to oust Kevin McCarthy.
This has been brewing for a while, honestly. Look, everybody knows that his ascension to the Speaker's position was tumultuous, and there was several of us that reserved ever voting for him because we just felt that he was not a true leader, that he was not trustworthy. But he was elected, and we wanted him to be successful because that success would lead to success for the American people. And so we worked really hard. We worked, and we were able to pass a very conservative agenda because a small group of us held hard to our guns and dragged the conference over to the right. And we were able to pass H.R. 1, the domestic energy legislation, H.R. 2, what I'm told is the most comprehensive and conservative southern border and immigration policy that has ever been passed. The National Defense Act, NDAA, most conservative ever being passed with only Republican votes. The problem and the failure that Kevin McCarthy had was that when it came to the fiscal end of things, he failed miserably. And he didn't just fail, he misled, the conference. And so two real big inflection points. Number one, the Budget Act of 1974 calls for the 12 appropriation bills that we fund government with to be passed by the House by June 30. So start clicking the calendar on that as we begin the year. And then we also had this big budget ceiling debate. We go through the budget ceiling debate, debt ceiling debate, which is basically the line of credit that the federal government has. And I worked very hard. A lot of my colleagues worked very hard to bring all the parties together and craft a document that raised the debt ceiling, $1.5 trillion, or until March the 11th of next year. It froze spending at fiscal 22 levels because we thought that was plenty high enough, but also clawed back the unspent funds from COVID and from new Green Deal provisions that the Biden administration had passed. We were able to secure 218 Republican votes for that legislation, Vince, and sent it over to the Senate. And before the ink was dry, Kevin McCarthy started negotiating a separate deal with Joe Biden. And when he completed that deal, the debt ceiling was raised until January of 25 with no dollar amount affixed to it, which basically means that he gave them a blank check looking at about $4 trillion in additional spending. None of the clawbacks were there. None of the provisions were there. And to demonstrate how tilted this was towards the Democrats, when he passed that bill out of the House, 169 Democrats supported it, and only 145 Republicans did. Then we fast forward, we get to June 30th. We don't have the appropriation bills. July 30, we don't get them. The Appropriations Committee had completed most of their work. He doesn't bring them to the floor. August 30 comes. Finally, a small group of us again get together. We force Kevin McCarthy to bring those bills to the floor because we are facing the government shutdown or a CR. And so we were able to pass 3 of those 4 bills. DOD, Homeland Security, State and Foreign and Operations. Anyway, he forces the Republican conference and Congress into a situation where they have to either fund government with a continuing resolution or have what I call a slowdown. And so many of us were opposed to that. When he passed that resolution, there were 209 Democrats that supported it and only 125 Republicans. Again, if you are passing major pieces of legislation that affect the finances of this country and you're relying upon more Democrats to pass that legislation than you are Republicans, who are you working for? And as that legislation was being passed, we received message from President Biden that there was another provision would soon be looking at, that Kevin McCarthy agreed to attach southern border security to Ukraine funding. And that's it. We're done. We're done of the misleading. We're done of the mistruths, and it was time for him to be removed.
Were you surprised to hear yesterday Kevin McCarthy say two things? One, that he's not going to run for Speaker again. I think that came as a surprise to a lot of people. And two, that he said he had some sort of secret deal with Pelosi, that Pelosi would rescue him if he had ever run into a motion to vacate.
I don't doubt the second part of that statement, and that's why I think that he was so arrogant as he approached this and said, "Bring it on, bring it on." And so when we did, I think by that morning he recognized that no, Hakeem came out and said, you don't have a deal with me, and I'm in charge of this group now, and you're going to have to bail yourself out. I think that morning he knew that he was in major trouble.
It's a remarkable. So but you didn't know that he was going to drop out, right? I mean, so when you move forward on voting on this and to oust Kevin McCarthy, you did it without knowing what came next, correct? Like all you knew was that you were removing McCarthy.
No, I didn't. We did not know. I did not know what the final outcome. I don't know that anybody, really knows the final outcome up here until the votes are all calculated. But I will tell you this: I find it very telling that some other people knew, because before midnight last night, Vince, what was there, 5 people that have announced that they're going to run for Speaker, which then goes to the other argument that we were making in January when everybody said, well, who then? Well, who then? And we all kept saying, nobody is going to signal or raise their hand and say that they're running for Speaker until the king's been removed, because they fear for retribution.
Do you think Democrats made a mistake voting with you yesterday? I realize that they voted and achieved the goal that you wanted, which is to remove Kevin McCarthy. But from where I'm sitting, I kind of think that they believed McCarthy would return to that seat, and the only way that would occur would be with Democrats, voting present or something, and in exchange for some sort of concessions from McCarthy. Now it looks like conservatives are going to get to really have carte blanche here, and McCarthy's not even a part of this equation. Did Democrats make a mistake yesterday?
They may have made a miscalculation. I don't know, but I'll tell you what. I absolutely, with all my heart, believe that the country's in better shape this afternoon than it was yesterday morning. I truly believe that. We cannot have someone who is not trustworthy leading the Republican conference. We have the ability right now with this small majority to move the conference over to the right, and we've demonstrated that we are doing just that. And if we have a strong leader that we all can rely upon, that we can count on his word, that has a vision, that shares the vision that we do of getting our fiscal house in order and saving the country from financial ruin, we can close the 118th Congress out very strong.
So, as you mentioned, there's only a 45-day continuing resolution in effect right now, which means that the government is currently funded up until just before Thanksgiving. At the moment, the House is not in session. The now Speaker pro tem, Patrick McHenry, announced yesterday that everything will come back next week, Tuesday. That's when you're apparently going to hear from some of these candidates who would like to become the next Speaker of the House. Are we wasting precious time by waiting for that vote?
We are. We should be still meeting with and he has the ability to certainly direct this as Speaker pro tem. We should have the Rules Committee meeting right now, and the Appropriation Committee. There's 2 appropriation committees that still have some work to do. They should be continuing this work. What I am pleased about is, of the $6.9 trillion that's proposed to spend next fiscal year, Vince, what is left to appropriate is about $400 billion. So in the scheme of things, there's not that much work left. Most of the spending is mandatory, as you know. The discretionary funding, the big bills have been taken care of. The Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, the military construction, VA, that's already been passed. Okay, so $400 billion. There's 8 bills, but it's $400 billion. There is no reason that we can't knock that out. We did 4 of the biggest bills that we have to address last week alone. Let's get back to work and knock the rest of this out.
Right. Why would you need a week delay before you could begin the process of picking a speaker? Why would that delay even occur?
Can't answer that. I really can't answer that.
Well, it seems to me, Congressman, that money is a big thing here too. Because yesterday I noticed that there were some attacks on Matt Gaetz about he's fundraising, and he responded with I thought a pretty rousing floor speech. Is like, look, I'm fundraising to the extent I'm fundraising is with small dollar donors. I'm just emailing people and asking them for support. People are pitching in $20, $30, $40. I'm not owned by any of these lobbyists, he said. I'm not owned by these special interests. And that to me seemed like a pretty direct shot at Kevin McCarthy. McCarthy, as I think a lot of people realize, and perhaps don't, is a guy who wields a tremendous amount of money. All of the money, much of the money in the House flows to all these Republican candidates through Kevin McCarthy. He makes decisions about where to spend and who to help and how they get elected and reelected. And maybe this week is a pause for donors to have their say in who becomes the next speaker. Is that possible?
Money runs a lot of this town, Vince. It's absolutely disgraceful. I can tell you, look at my FEC sheet, and you will see not a lot of PAC money coming into Matt Rosendale, and then you'll see that the Senate, unfortunately, functions the same way. There's a lot of people that will not get sideways with Mitch McConnell because he swings a very large bank account, not a big stick. He swings a big bank account,
right?
And people are just reluctant to try and go up against that. I will tell you right now, most of those folks have dedicated politics to their career, and I had a career. I had a successful career. I was blessed by God in real estate before I ever did this, and I put my children through school. They're adults now, and then I began my public service. So that this is not my career. What this is public service. So I'm not dependent upon that. So my votes are not tainted by what will and will not keep me here. Yeah. And unfortunately, that is a very, very small minority of the folks serving.
Congressman Matt Rosendale, a couple of people have thrown their hat into the rings, as you mentioned, already to become the next speaker. Among them are Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise. Could you envision yourself supporting any of them? Is there somebody who you'd prefer?
What I will tell you is I'm very glad that we are having this forum on Tuesday so that everyone who is interested in becoming the next speaker is actually going to be able to come out and speak and demonstrate their leadership skills, share their vision with us, and we know them well enough that we will be able to determine if they're going to be trustworthy enough, which I consider the most important quality, to serve us all and represent us. I want to know that when someone makes an agreement with us in the conference, in confidence, that when they leave the room and they negotiate with Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, or Joe Biden, that they do not disregard the commitments they've made to the conference.
Lastly, Congressman Rosendale, I do want to ask you about a headline involving you today because Tom Cotton is attacking you, the senator, on Twitter, or X, they call it now. It's related to something that I guess you had said in the past, that you, ahead of the 2022 midterms, that you were praying for a small majority for Republicans. I assume that means so that conservatives could have more sway within the Congress, but I'll let you explain yourself. But Tom Cotton is attacking you for this, suggesting that you were instead praying for Democrats to win, and that means you shouldn't be anywhere near the Senate. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think you're going to hear a lot of people say a lot of things because of heated tempers and tensions because of what's taking place now. But I will tell you that I did want a small majority for the Republicans because I knew that there was going to be a small group of conservatives that were going to be able to pass that conservative agenda and move. It would force the entire conference to move to the right. And guess what, Vince? I was spot on. I was fortunate enough to have those prayers answered, and guess what? It has produced much, much fruit. And the only time that we have lost that conservative agenda is when Kevin McCarthy has gone around behind us and undone it with the Democrat votes.
Congressman Matt Rosendale joining us today. As always, thank you, sir. Really appreciate your time.